Welcome, everybody. We're happy to have you here for the next installment of the Winter Bookathon with Bold Strokes Books. I'm Carsen Taite. I'm going to be lurking in the background. And these fine authors will be reading stories to you. How exciting is that? So I'm going to start everybody off with a question, and that is this. How do you select the names of your characters? Let's start with Chris Bryant.
There. I start off the book. I usually, if I see a name from like a movie, like if I read the credits on a movie or a show, that's how I was like, oh, I like that one. And so I usually go with that.
Excellent. Chris, you get to call on somebody.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Jonathan, what about you?
It's a combination. Sometimes names just come to me, and then sometimes I'll go through an entire draft and go, that's not working, and I'll do a search and replace on the whole thing. And then with the characters in my fantasy book, there was an elaborate naming structure for the people from the realm of fire. So once that was in place, I had to find names that worked with the naming structure. So that was fun.
And what about you?
Stephanie. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Stephanie. Oh, I was taking it over.
We would pass it on.
Okay. Hi, I'm Stephanie Lake, one half of a husband-wife writing group. And naming my characters is the hardest part of writing. So that usually comes last. And as I'm drafting the book, I'll put character 1, character 2, and I do a search replace. It's the only way I can do it. And I run on my website, I'll run naming contests, and the people who win get some free stuff. Carsen, do you want to?
I don't.
No. About Nicole.
I'll go. So I've got a few different systems. I've got, for my main characters, I want to really love those names and I want them to really be perfect. So they're usually names that I've heard somewhere before. And anytime I'm always listening for them. And if I find them, I write them down and save them until I've got the character for that name. But any secondary characters, I'm sure everyone has spent a ridiculous amount of time scrolling through baby name websites. So that's method number 2 if I'm stuck.
Anne?
Most of mine are, they come to me because I dream my characters. So when I dream them, their names come to me in the dream. But like Nicole, if I get stuck, I will scroll through the baby name books. There's one character that had to have an African name in a book I did previously. So I went through African baby names. Or if it had to have a certain meaning, depending on what's going on, in the book, I'm writing a fantasy and I needed the name to have a meaning. So that's basically how I find mine.
I'll just say that I have Russian baby names tab on my computer right now. Okay, without further ado, we're going to turn it over to y'all. Anne, you will start. Thank you. And everyone else, if you could mute and hide your camera, and we'll let Anne have the show.
All right. Okay, well, today I'm going to be reading from my upcoming release, which you can see right back here, Masquerade. It's a historical romance that takes place during the early 1920s during the Harlem Renaissance. And the main character, Celine Montre, you will be meeting her. And this is a scene where life is all wonderful for her right now, but it's just before a scandal happens and she has to flee to Harlem. But this is a happy moment in her life. New Orleans, 1923. Celine had been Mrs. Montre for 10 years, and in that 10 years of marriage to her husband, Paul, she thought she was content with her life just the way it was. But Paul seemed to believe otherwise. He had just returned home from an evening out with his friends and was annoyed to hear that Celine had spent her evening not with her friends, but mending his clothes and reading. Celine, why do you torture yourself this way? He asked. I'm not torturing myself. I'm simply doing what any normal wife does for her husband. And I'm reading a book you gave me, she said, as if it should have made perfect sense to him. Paul sat beside Celine on the sofa, took her hands in his, and placed an affectionate kiss on her fingertips. You know I adore you, but you are not any normal husband and wife. The whole purpose of this arrangement was to be able to live our lives the way we choose. Celine nodded. I know. and I'm content with the way things are. Paul gave her a look of skepticism. You cannot tell me that you dreamed of puttering around the house doing chores, going to bourgeois tea parties with women you have nothing in common with, discussing tedious subjects such as who wore what to what event and what new thing their child learned today. Celine, you're a vibrant, beautiful, intelligent woman who should not be locked away like a virgin in a nunnery. Celine looked guiltily down at their clasped hands. Paul, I don't have your courage. Paul placed a finger under Celine's chin and raised her eyes to meet his. I have courage because you allow me to be me. Let me do the same for you. Celine thought back to when she and Paul were children and found it hard to believe that she could give him courage. Their parents were lifetime friends, so she and Paul practically shared a crib. He had always been the brave, outgoing one. The only time Celine had ever had to be the stronger one was the moments he would feel as if their parents loved their standing in the community more than they loved their children. At those times, Paul's usual jovial mood would turn dark and depressed. He would worry her with talk of how his family would be happier if he just disappeared to avoid the embarrassment his true nature would cause them. She would refuse to leave him alone, no matter how much he railed for her to do so, until she was able to draw him out of his dark place he had retreated to. Celine shook her head. If my parents were to find out, we'll continue to be as discreet as we have been these past 10 years. Besides, if anyone from their circle is going to the same parties and events we would be attending, I'm sure they wouldn't want to be found out any more than we do. Celine thought just for a moment what it would be like to finally allow herself to let go, the way Paul had done after their first 5 years of marriage, but fear continued to hold her back. She patted Paul's hand and stood. I'm entertained enough with all your wonderful stories when you come home and the books you bring me. I don't need any more than that. I love seeing how happy you are. Paul followed her into her bedroom and lounged on her bed as she stood behind her dressing screen to change into her nightclothes. My poor Celine, forever sacrificing herself for everyone's happiness but her own. I don't deserve such a precious gift. You should have married a man who would have at least been willing to give you children to keep you company. Celine joined him on her bed, cuddled into his side, and placed an affectionate kiss on his cheek. I get to spend the rest of my life with my best friend in a beautiful home he gifted me. What more could I ask for? You could ask for passion. My passion is my sketching and making my custom hats for father to sell in the shop. If you want to accompany me out to my little liaisons, allow me to bring a companion home for you. Celine gazed at him in shock. You are not suggesting. She blushed at the very thought of what he might be suggesting. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. You can indulge in your heart's or body's desire in the privacy of our home. Celine's brow wrinkled in thought. Paul placed a kiss on the folds of her skin. Don't think too hard about it. Just allow me to do this one thing for you, and if you don't like it, then we'll never speak of it again. Celine swallowed nervously and nodded, too afraid to speak her answer out loud. Paul clapped happily. Excellent. He placed another kiss on her forehead, stood, and assisted tucking Celine under her covers. It's late and father wants me in the store early to help restock. We'll discuss this further tomorrow. Je t'aime, mon cher. Celine blew him a kiss. They had not slept in the same bed in 5 years. There was no longer a need to continue putting up appearances at home, as long as they behaved as a loving, affectionate couple in public. That wasn't too difficult to do as they truly did love each other. They just felt no passion for one another and were completely fine with the fact that they never would. That wasn't the reason they married. Marrying each other was the most logical thing to do after having spent most of their lives together. They were able to appease their parents, avoid being placed in an arranged marriage to strangers, and not have to hide who they truly were from each other. 3 weeks later, Celine sat in front of her vanity, happily humming a tune as she smoothed down the front of her dress. She was getting ready for a surprise outing Paul had planned for her birthday. Paul walked into her bedroom. Ah, you're ready. I believe so. I wish you would tell me where we're going. Then it wouldn't be a surprise now, would it? Celine loved seeing Paul happy and excited the way he was now. This was the Paul she had loved to be around growing up, the little boy who saw excitement and adventure in everything he did. He offered his arm. Shall we? Paul escorted her through their home toward one of their guest rooms on the other side of the house. Celine looked at the closed door in confusion. Paul, what is this? On the other side of that door is your birthday gift. As much as I hope you will, I won't force you to accept it. Whether you participate or watch, the choice is yours and yours alone. Celine looked toward the door, surprised at the sensual sound of feminine laughter. Her body reacted in a way she had never felt before. A heat spread throughout her body and gathered at the juncture of her thighs. Hearing the women's enjoyment had curiosity overriding her fear. All right. Paul handed her a feathered mask. I promised we would be discreet. We'll all be wearing masks, and I blindfolded the women when I brought them here so they wouldn't know where we live. He put a domino mask on himself. Celine couldn't believe he had done all of this for her. Thank you, Paul. She gave him a hug. Paul held her for a long moment, then took her hands and led her through the door. That's it.
Keep reading.
No.
There's a surprise behind the door. I'm not going to show you.
You heard feminine laughter, so you can guess what the surprise is.
Use your imagination.
Exactly. Gotta leave them wanting more.
Exactly. Well, you did that.
Thank
you. Let's see. Nicole, will you read to us next? Will you read us a story?
Sure. So I'm going to read from my new release, The Clinch. This is out right now in the Bold Strokes store, or in a few days on the 12th here. It's going to be hitting wide release and you can get it anywhere. And this is a contemporary sports romance. It takes place in first-person perspective from Eden Bauer's point of view, and she is a mixed martial artist and also a world champion in the UFC. So the story is about her being met with a new challenger who has just come on the scene. She's been dominant for the past 4 years, but now there's a new fighter coming on the scene who is very talented, but also very loud and aggressive and comes from a very prestigious family. And she has basically bullied her way into a championship fight. So up until this point, these two have not gotten along at all. There's a lot of tension between them, and now they're finally about to fight. So this is kind of the last step before that scene where they just have to do what's called making weight in the martial arts world. You have to weigh a certain amount before a professional fight. So that's where this scene is going to begin. And it's going to start with a conversation between Eden, the main character, and her best friend, Layla. Cutting weight is never fun, but I have it down to as much of a science as possible. I normally walk around at 158 pounds, but I need to be down to 145 for weigh-ins. 13 pounds doesn't sound like a ton, but I don't have much to spare. I'm already lean at my normal weight, which leaves me with mostly water and muscle to lose. Extreme dehydration isn't a good feeling and freaks me out. It's a practice I wish combat sports would do away with. We're all cutting weight, which means we're competing with the same people we would at our natural weight anyway, rendering the whole thing unnecessary. It's just one of those old traditions we can't seem to shake. I start 2 weeks out from the fight by drastically lowering my caloric intake, cutting carbs and salt, and drinking tons of water. The idea is to lose as much body weight as humanly possible in this stage so I don't have to dehydrate myself as much in the water cut. But it usually only amounts to 5 or 6 pounds, leaving me with 7 or 8 pounds of water to lose. It's not unheard of or even drastic compared to what a lot of athletes do, but that's an absurd fact. It's not all that rare for someone to end up in the hospital trying to do a crazy cut. Even if they're successful, they often go on to lose the match because they haven't fully recovered. I'm hours into the water cut now and just over an hour from weigh-ins. I haven't gotten on the scale in a while. It stresses me out to watch my weight creep down 1/10 of a pound at a time. I've been wearing a sauna suit for hours, a garment from hell made of non-breathable material that makes you sweat more than you ever sweat in your life when you combine it with exercise. Running on a treadmill like that, unable to drink water, is a special kind of torture. I'm so close and so weak now, I resort to sitting in the sauna. The heat is insufferable. I can't even sit up straight and have to lie down across the bench. It's like my blood is boiling. The heat wants to rise off of me, but it's trapped in the sauna suit, which is squishing around on my skin. It's disgusting. Layla opens the sauna door and comes in. Even the tiny touch of cool air that sneaks through feels incredible. You want to see what you're at? I'm so drained I can barely even answer her. I grunt. You have to be close, she says. Let's check. If I leave and I'm not there, I don't know if I can get back in. A wave of nausea hits and I wish I would just puke. That would probably do it. 5 more minutes then, Layla says. Then you need a break. You don't look good. Don't say that to me. Don't worry, you'll be fine. Layla watches the time. It feels like 5 minutes has passed 6 times over, but it's too hard to ask her. Finally, she stands up. All right, come on. Being this drained makes the brain fuzzy. I know this building, these halls, yet I can't quite make sense of the route we're taking. When we reach the scale, I peel off the sauna suit with Layla's help. It's damn near orgasmic having the cool air finally touch my lava skin. It's always a little strange letting Layla see me in nothing but underwear, but it's just part of this life. And I'm too exhausted to think too much on my appearance, even though I must look emaciated and far from my best self. Ready, she asks when it's off. I nod and step up. She reads the scale from the other side, waiting until it's settled. She wordlessly holds her hand up for a high five. Really? 145, baby. I've never failed to make weight, but it always sucks just enough to worry me. I shower and put on clean clothes. Once I've done that, I feel balanced again, energized by the fact that this is almost over. It feels like it takes forever waiting for the official weigh-in, but it finally comes. It's ironic we do face-offs at weigh-ins, that we're all standing there trying to scare one another while we're about to fall over. Once I'm to the stage and hear the crowd, I feel myself starting to smile. This is it. The fight is tomorrow. I'm about to walk out and see Brooklyn up close and personal, finally. As the challenger, she goes first, and she enters from the other side. They announce her over the speakers, and the crowd erupts in cheers. The floor is shaking with the vibration of their adoration. They love her. Unbelievable. Brooklyn signals the crowd to get even louder as she shouts something I can't make out. She has on a black baseball hat and a chain around her neck. She's shredded beyond belief with deeply defined delts, six-pack abs, and a chiseled back. She's still stronger than I am, even with my absolutely ruthless training, but I don't let it bother me. It's just a different body type, and it costs her other things. I keep my own body for fighting given the choice, but hers is awfully pretty. She steps on the scale, and they announce her as 144 pounds. She flexes for the photo, a pound under. Layla appears behind me and drapes my championship belt over my shoulder as the announcer moves on to me, yapping about my hometown, style, and record before he finally screams my name. The crowd explodes, a nice surprise. It shouldn't be shocking, but the way they went off for Brooklyn, I thought I'd lost them. I walk out swift and stoic with my belt draped over my shoulder. The weight of it reminds me who I am, what I've done. I'm the youngest UFC champion ever, and the longest reigning women's champion. I'm everything Brooklyn wants to be. I take off my shirt and sweats and step onto the scale, confident I'm every bit as intimidating, whether she wants to admit it or not. The announcer calls out my official weight, 145 on the nose. The crowd cheers, and I look to the back of the room, taking in the roar of all those people before I step off the scale to face off with Brooklyn. We each walk to center stage, locking eyes. This ritual has always felt archaic and a little silly. This is the first time I've been remotely interested in what I may see in a fighter at this stage. I reach center first and stop, facing her in a fighting stance. She cracks the smallest smile and closes the distance so she's only inches from my face, her own arms raised. Having her so close is surreal. It highlights her height disadvantage. I feel like I'm towering over her even though it's only 3 inches. Her features, both her body and her face, are hard and strong and beautiful all at once. Now that I'm closer, I can see the chain around her neck is a cross. Her eyes are every bit as hypnotic as they look in her pictures. Her thick lashes and full lips make her entire look snap into place for me. She projects such aggressive strength and toughness she manages to come across as masculine, but when you're right here looking at her, she's actually quite feminine. "That's my belt on your shoulder," she says. "You're gonna have to take it." "I will, believe that." "You're not ready, Brooklyn. You think you're good, but really you're just strong. It won't be enough." Brooklyn lunges at me. Dana White shoves himself between us with his back to me and 2 hands outstretched toward Brooklyn, but she's not trying to push past him. She just wanted to make me flinch. She winks at me and backs away. "You're going to the hospital tomorrow, Bauer." The crowd starts chanting, split between my name and hers. They're so loud we can't hear the people on the stage anymore, so I just smile and hold my arms out to my sides again. I'm here.
Wow. You need to buy those girls a hamburger.
I think that's the first thing they do after this.
I would imagine. Wow. I've been hearing all this buzz about this book and about how intense the fight scenes are and how realistic they seem. So anyway, I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
That was awesome. That was a great peek into that world. So Stephanie, will you tell us a story?
I would love to tell you a story, Carsen. I have a brand new book with Bold Strokes Books. It is available on their website and will come out on other sites on the 12th. Can you see the cover? Maybe? Well, anyway, it's a beautiful cover. Absolutely gorgeous. It's a male-male romance set in the Regency period. And it's about two brothers and their friend Wentworth. Wentworth is a Viscount, and he grew up with the two brothers, William, who's older, and Hector, who's quite a bit younger. Wentworth and William are great friends because they're about the same age, and eventually they turn into lovers. Whereas Hector, being so much younger, was always the tag-along, kind of annoying little brother until he grows up. This first scene is the first time Wentworth sees Hector after a long time not seeing him at all. Autumn 1806, London. Will had changed. His agreeable temperament now impatient, hard, ruthless. Wentworth wanted nothing more than to scuttle the conversation, tired of listening to how the next bloody battle would do this or win that or kill so many. Will, you're a man of science, a doctor. You're sworn to save lives, not inflict wounds and misery. Will glared at him, tossed back his drink, and limped off through the dim, crowded ballroom to find gloomier company. It would be easy to lose his temper and discard their long-standing friendship. In fact, some days it seemed Will possessed a desire to get himself killed. Better pursue the man before he started an altercation that led to a duel. But just then, he noticed a man with wide, dark eyes glancing at him from the edge of the dance floor. He'd noticed the man and the glance a few times already, so he stared back. This time the gaze held. The young man was beautiful, and Wentworth knew him. But damnation had he improved with age. All thoughts of Will vanished as Wentworth made his way across the dance floor, under the flickering chandeliers, no easy feat in such a crush, to reacquaint himself with the man with those beautiful eyes. Hector Somerville was no longer a lad. A lad. You can see there might be a little bit of tension coming down in the next few scenes. But I've skipped quite a few scenes to read you the next one. It happens a few weeks later. I have to say that Hector is normally a very chatty character, and in this scene he doesn't say much, which sort of showcases the fact that he's nervous. The dinner party at Wentworth's townhouse had been a success. With the late hour, the guests gone except for Hector. They sipped their port in the dark, candlelit study, both having loosened their cravats. Refill? Hector asked, walking toward Wentworth's chair. Hell, his crotch was at eye level, and Wentworth could see which way he dressed. Then he rested his hand on Wentworth's shoulder, seemingly with camaraderie. He gripped Hector's masculine hand, a strong hand, rough and calloused, and a surge of sensual energy zipped through Wentworth's every pore. He might have moaned, unlikely, but it was possible. Over the past few weeks, since their reintroduction at the party, they had managed to find similar events in which they shared an interest. And every time they met, one or both of them had made sure to brush against the other or share a brief touch. He did not imagine the attraction. Hector shared his interest. Wentworth would play the role of seducer tonight, but would need to go gently. Hector had such an air of innocence, Wentworth was convinced he'd never been with a man before. He exhibited too much nervousness and shyness to have any experience. Raising Hector's exquisite hand to his mouth, he placed one gentle kiss on his palm. The skin smelled of sunshine and male, not perfumed and insipid like so many fops he knew. Hector inhaled a slow, wavering breath, closed his eyes, and leaned against the chair for support. His erection touched Wentworth's arm, an accident for certain, because Hector pulled away at once, but not before Wentworth sported an answering cockstand. He pulled at Hector's hand and urged him to walk to the front of the chair, hands still entwined, staring into his eyes, heart pounding. He pulled Hector slowly down for a soft, sweet kiss. Lips only, no teeth. The smell of arousal hit his senses along with starch and sweat. Excuse me. Lock the door, Hector. The young man broke contact immediately as if burned. Would he run now that he'd come to his senses? Would he leave and never return? Hector shook himself as if the sensations were too intense. Looking at the floor, he walked to the door and hesitated as he reached for the knob, pressing his head against the wood, rolling it side to side. Had the boy decided to leave? Would there be no seduction? Wentworth stood, unsure what to do. Hector? His voice was an octave lower than planned, choked with this regret, desire. Hector turned slowly and looked him up and down. God, you're perfect. He swallowed all audibly. He almost took a step toward Wentworth, almost, but then he put his foot back in place. When Hector didn't move, Wentworth raised one hand, palm up. He would not force him to decide, but he would encourage him to decide in favor of pleasure, desire, and companionship. Before he had a chance to speak, Hector locked the door, sealing their fate. Hector went to him, mouth slightly open, pulse jumping in his throat. Taking the last step to bring them together, Wentworth drank in his radiant gaze, the lustful expression, the trust. He rubbed his thumb across the side of Hector's wide mouth. He lowered his head. God and the devil couldn't have stopped him at this point, and kissed soft lips. Holy Mother, he was inflamed. Backing away, he led Hector to the carpet near the fireplace, not caring about ruining his own tailored clothes. He reclined on the lush carpet and once again raised a beckoning hand. Hector swallowed, took the offering with shy, slow movements, lay down next to Wentworth as though he were about to lie next to sin itself. That's it for that scene.
So your book is very timely considering Bridgerton. I love a good Regency romance. Thank you very much. Very excited for this book.
Thank you.
So my next storyteller is J. Marshall Freeman. Will you tell us a story? Another book that's got tons of buzz. Very excited about it.
I'm pleased to hear any buzz and that people are excited. This is it. This is The Dubious Gift of Dragon Blood, or at least the cover. The book is actually wider than this. It's a queer fantasy YA novel. And I came out in December, my first professionally published novel, and I'm very grateful to Bold Strokes. Okay, I have a question. Everyone's reading romantic or about to be romantic pieces. And that's what I was going to read too. Would people like if I did something a little different just for variety, or should I give me a vote in like a chat or something? Different, says Chris Bryant. Okay, I'm going to go with something a little bit different. There is a war in the book. The book takes place in the realm of fire, which Crispin, the main character, is a 16-year-old from Earth, has a link to the realm of fire due to the copper in his blood. But there's an unexpected attack on the realm of fire by cat soldiers from the realm of air. And Crispin is taken hostage, flown away from his romantic love, Davix of the realm. So he's flown off into the mountains to a secret base where he has been caged. Terrifying cat soldiers, half human, half feline, prowl and threaten. But only one has come to talk to him. "Good morning, Copperblood," said a voice above me. I looked up and saw the tortoiseshell cat sitting on top of my cage. "I am Translator. We talked when you arrived last night." My heart started pounding, but I was damned if I was going to cower again. "You better let me go. I'm an important person, and they're going to come rescue me." The cat jumped to the ground, landing almost silently. He was dressed in brown leather. His feet were bare, and he wore a cloth backpack. The tortoiseshell fur made his face into a chaotic map with no place to put your focus other than the red-rimmed eyes or the shining fangs that showed when he spoke. "You are stupid, human. Your friends have aligned with conquerors from the realm of air. The dragons of fire sit in ignorance in their mountain, placidly awaiting their deaths." I was stunned into silence. "Would you like something to eat?" he asked unexpectedly and uncovered a dish. The smell of stew hit my nostrils, making my stomach sing a little ballad. Yeah, for sure." "Well, then you have to help me." Translator pulled a fat leather-bound book from his backpack. "This is a dictionary I have compiled myself. Tongue of air to tongue of fire." He stroked the cover tenderly with the pads of his hands. "I have little opportunity to speak to anyone in the tongue of fire. You could help me confirm some pronunciations." And if I do, you'll give me the food? He pushed the bowl through the bars and I grabbed it, scooping up chunks of meat with my fingers before bringing the bowl to my lips to lap up the greasy broth. Under other circumstances, I don't think I could have choked this mess down, but beggars can't be restaurant critics. Do you have some water too? He handed me his water skin and I practically drained it. The world, while still bleak, didn't seem quite as hopeless. Finished? The cat asked, turning his dictionary so I could see it. It was open to a page with 3 columns of neatly penned words. Now, Copperblood, say each word slowly and clearly for me, so I may verify my pronunciation. And don't touch the pages with your filthy fingers. Look, I said, I can't help with your dictionary. I only speak tongue of fire. I can't read it. He shot me a fierce carnivorous glare. Then what use are you? It's not my fault. Why don't we just talk? You probably don't get much chance, right? He growled low. Agreed. Wait, what about the other cat at Cliffside, the brindle one? He speaks tongue of fire. Well, sort of. Exactly. He has no grasp of the idiomatic language. He speaks word-for-word translation with only the most rudimentary vocabulary. I should have been sent to the city in his place. Apparently, I had uncovered a sore spot. So why weren't you? They think because I am a scholar, I am no warrior, but I am a cat soldier of air, same as he. Translator puffed out his chest and roared in my face. Hey, you have me convinced. So what's your real name? Only my family calls me by my given name. You will call me Translator. Oh, okay. I'm Crispin, not that anyone on this world ever gets it right. Craspahan, the cat said with a nod like he had nailed it. I sighed. So you're from the realm of air. Nice place? He looked up into the sky like he could see his world floating there. Now it was his turn to sigh. Air is a world of impressions. We move through the colored mist, finding our way by scent and feel. The wind makes the mist dance, and in those cyclonic movements, tales are told. The cat clearly had the soul of a poet under his motley hair and scars. Are there trees? I asked. With all the violence and fear I'd been living through, making small talk was a relief. Yes. Majestic evergreens whose tops pierce the mist and bring us news of the sky. I love forests. It sounds like a beautiful place. Indeed. But how much more beautiful it would be were we allowed to sleep every night in our lairs with our spouses and our kits. By hand have I written a modest but wide-ranging library, and as each of my children grows to cognizance, I read with them the histories and the fancies. But not every kit has received my tutelage. All too often, I am called away from home to translate, sometimes for more than a cycle. He brought his face close to the bars and whispered, Craspahan, do you know you do not know? Air is a land without mercy. Our only value is how we may serve the 22 dragons and their obsessive quest to rule all of realm space. If they intend to bring you there, this awful possibility hadn't occurred to me. Let's talk about something else, I said quickly. Do you sing songs in the realm of air? Oh, yes. Songs martial or songs romantic, farces and roundelay japes. Perhaps that is what keeps us from going mad. Here, I shall sing you a song about an aerialist named Afthalasafsofalbas. The song, which he sang in a surprisingly sweet voice, got faster and faster as it went. I think it was basically a joke song made up of crazy tongue twisters. At one point, it got so fast and complex, my eyes widened. Translator finally messed up and started laughing. The difference in his personality, now that he was talking about things that mattered to him, was a shock. And I realized how lonely he must be. And that is it.
Wow. Now all my cats are going to want to be cat soldiers.
Oh, yeah. No, cat soldiers are a mess. Don't let them be.
That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So bringing it home, we've got Chris Bryant, and you're going to read from Scent. And it has chocolate all over the front of it. So, we know it's going to be sweet and good.
Thank you.
It's all you.
Thank you. Okay, so I am reading a scene in Scent that's about halfway through the book. It's one of their dates. I thought I don't think I've really read a date before, so this is chapter 14. I wasn't sure what kind of beer you liked, but based on the ale we had last week, I decided on one of Chicago's finest. I held up a 6-pack of Fist City Pale Ale in my left hand. And if I was wrong, then I have this. I held up a 6-pack of Berghoff Local root beer in my right hand. Both are perfect. Come on in. Sophia stepped aside and patted down her hair. I just got home 2 minutes ago. I haven't had a chance to change or get ready. I immediately put the beverages down and held both her hands out away from her body to playfully give her a look over. I smiled when I saw bare feet and rose pink toenails. My favorite heels were kicked haphazardly in a pile by the front door. You look great, but I get that you want to change. I pulled her just a tiny bit closer and softly kissed her cheek. You smell delicious, though. Today was caramel and chocolate day. She leaned back in surprise. How do you know that? I've come to learn all the different flavors you use, but caramel is one of my favorites. I gently let her go. She looked away shyly, as though she wasn't comfortable getting compliments. She nodded. I spent all day making fleur de sol chocolates. I got a rather large order that I need filled by next week. That's great. I'm so happy things are picking up for you. Do you get a lot of business from your samples? I followed her into the kitchen, eager to find out who placed the order. Trish and I had decided to place an order for 50 samples boxes to hand deliver to customers when we introduced our existing customers to Neville, but I didn't think she placed the order yet. I did. Let me go change into something more comfortable, and then I'll tell you all about it. Give me 5 minutes. I watched her walk slowly out of the room and up the stairs, excited to see what more comfortable meant. I was wearing jeans, a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and loafers. My outfit was a little bit nicer than I would have worn to hang with Trish or my parents. She left a menu on the kitchen island for me to peruse. True to her word, she was back in 5 minutes. Wow, that was all I could say. The suit had been replaced with black yoga pants that showed off curves and a long-sleeved light blue t-shirt with the name of a 5K run she did last year. What? She touched the back of her neck and tugged a few hairs that escaped her ponytail. Adorable doesn't even begin to explain. I couldn't stop my cheesy smile. She was a combination of cute, sexy, and something else. When she smiled, it came to me. She was warm. Gone was the emotionless shell of a struggling businesswoman, replaced by somebody I really wanted to get to know. What a nice change. I didn't want to push it. After such a busy week, Sophia probably needed the night to rest, but I asked for another date anyway. She surprised me by agreeing to it. A nice change, she smirked. I smiled harder because she wasn't offended. She wanted me to say the words. As much as I admire the classy, sexy look in a crisp, clean suit, this casual thing you have going on does funny things to my stomach. I moved closer and slid my hand over hers. I know you had a rough week, so thank you for agreeing to pizza night. She linked my fingers with hers. I decided I need to make time for myself too. As much as I want the collection to take off, I need to step away from it. She looked at my mouth. Plus, I need food and beer. I slid the menu in front of her and walked around the island so we were both on the same side. Then, let's find a pie. For the record, I'll eat anything but onions. You don't like onions? Not on date night. Oh, do you have a lot of date nights? I looked up at the ceiling as though silently counting. Including tonight? She playfully nodded along. In the last 18 months, I've had 2 date nights, and they were both with you. Her jaw dropped open, but she quickly closed it and stammered, okay, because you've been working so hard? I was in desperate need of a break from relationships. My ex was quite the trip and pretty much shredded me, so I needed time to heal. I did want sympathy. It was a fact of life. I had healed and was ready to move on. What about you? My last date was at the beginning of the year. It didn't go well. My cheesy grin was back. I'd say I'm sorry, but I'd be lying. Because of your last bad date, I'm here now. Let's order dinner and drink beer so we can toast our horrible past and celebrate that we are both here today. She handed me a glass for my beer. I was comfortable drinking it from the can, but Sophia was a bit more polished. I waited until the froth on mine threatened to overflow and tapped it against hers. Here's to date night. I opted for generic rather than emotional because I knew I could push her away by opening up too quickly. That's the best you can do? She shook her head. Okay, then you make the toast. She rested her hip against the counter and held her glass close to mine. How about to new beginnings for both of us? Or just to us? She tilted her head as if contemplating the phrase and nodded. To us. Her eyes never left mine when we sipped our beers. My stomach fluttered when her eyes narrowed. I don't know what she was thinking, but I was tingling at the look she gave me. She put her beard down long enough to order a pizza. It'll be here in 30 minutes. Let's go relax in the living room. I know I've told you this already, but I really like your house. It's the true definition of charming. I followed her and sat on the couch next to her, but with enough distance between us not to make her uncomfortable. How long have you lived here? About 7 years. I plugged my inheritance into this house. I love everything about it. It's so warm and cozy, unlike my place. I was talking about my studio. My condo in the city was full of color and was spacious, but it lacked life. I didn't have any plants or pets. Sophia had a plant on every windowsill in the kitchen and larger plants tucked in corners of the living room, where I imagine they receive light during certain parts of the day. You just need some art on the walls. I mean, the one landscape you have is beautiful, so you're on your way. For the first time, I felt guilty for lying to Sophia about my life. She would probably love my condo. But I'll try harder. I mean, I live in the art district. I should be able to bargain with my neighbors, right? If you need help picking things out, I'd love to go on a shopping spree with you. She looked so confident and comfortable sitting there. It was hard not to want to scoot over and kiss those full lips again. Our first kiss had been perfect. Under the stars in the heat of the night, her hand on my shoulders and my hand on the back of her neck, keeping her close. The way she looked at me now was the same when we'd said goodbye the other night, hungry and determined. Tonight was going to be interesting. Our small talk was fun and flirty, but I wanted more. Just as I was about to slide closer to her, the doorbell rang. Pizza's here, surprisingly early. I sighed and waited for her in the kitchen. I'm not gonna lie, that smells delicious. When she opened the box, I leaned over her shoulder and put my hands on either side of her on the counter. Only a fraction of space was between us. Her movement stopped when she realized she was trapped. I placed a whisper of a kiss on her neck. She tilted her head to the side, affording me more skin. Encouraged, I applied more pressure and worked my way up to her cheek. When she turned, I released the counter and put my hands on her waist. She kissed me slowly. Her hands looped around the back of my neck and I sank against her. Both of us moaned. She was soft and her mouth was demanding. Her tongue pressed against mine, circling it, sucking it into her mouth. I was surprised at how assertive she was and took control of the moment. When we finally broke apart, I stumbled back a step. My knees were weak and I felt lightheaded. What are you doing to me, Sophia, sweet? I kept her face. She was so beautiful, vulnerable, yet strong. She put her hand on my chest right below my collarbone again. The question is, what are we doing to one another?
I guess that decision about no onions was a good one.
True. Date night. It's important. No onions.
No onions. So if anyone has any questions for our authors, we have a little bit of time if you'd like to type them in the Q&A box. Otherwise, I will torture them with my hat of questions, which I carry with me at all times. And I'm going to, let's see, let's have, Nicole, would you like to draw a question from the hat of questions?
Sure.
Okay, well, I'm going to hand it to you there. Okay, great. And I thank you very much for your question. I'm sorry, that was one we asked before. So Nicole has drawn another question through the magic of do you believe in writer's block?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely happens. I think it's a thing that maybe people kind of mysticize and take a little bit too seriously. It's really just a glorified phrase for getting stuck, and try not to give it too much power. So I just kind of brainstorm my way through it and move on.
I like that. I like that assessment. You know, it's like sometimes we do give it too much power. How about you, Anne? Writer's block, yes or no?
Yes, I believe in it. And I did give it too much power once and had like a 2-year block where I couldn't write anything. So, but then Femme Tales came out of it. So there you go.
There you go. Jonathan.
Writer's block? I think that it's probably not what it looks like. It's probably your brain trying to tell you something different. Like you need to be taking something else in. I think that we make a big deal of writer's block because we have this kind of work a day. If I haven't made that many words, then I'm not writing. But I believe everything is writing. When you're reading is writing. When you're working on a book, walking is writing. And the writer's block is just a way of saying your subconscious is cooking right now. Don't worry.
I feel like showering is writing for me. You know, if I'm in the shower, I have my best ideas.
Sometimes the best writing is as soon as you finish writing. Like I get up and I walk away and I oh, I know what that could have been. Stephanie,
how about you? Writer's block? Yes or no? And
so,
I'm going to tailor your question. So does it make a difference that there are two of you working on it?
Definitely, because I'll say, oh, this scene is just stupid. It's not going anywhere. I don't know what to do. And Lake will say, did you think of that? No, I didn't. So I think that actually is really helpful. I think that I can get writer's block for a scene, or maybe on how to finish the plot. I like to plot before I write, how to finish the plot, but never total writer's block, because if I get stuck on something, I'm writing something else. And my problem is I don't have enough time to write as much as I would like, not that there are ideas.
Good point. Chris?
Yeah, I agree with Stephanie. If you're writing and it just isn't working, I usually will write a scene and then I'll get to a point where I don't know how to take it from like this scene to this scene. So I'll leave it blank and then I'll just go to the next scene, you know, and then I'll just keep writing. I don't know that I've ever been stuck on something. Usually if that's the case, or I can tell if I'm just writing to write and then I'm like, okay, I gotta just stop. And then I just take a break and then I get back to it. Because while I'm taking a break, like Jonathan said, then my mind's thinking about it and I'm writing in my head, you know, okay, this, maybe I could do this or that. So yeah, we're writing all the time, even if we're not actually writing words down.
I agree with all of those answers. So we have an audience question. It's directed to Jonathan, but I'm going to broaden it and make it directed to all of you. The question is, how did Jonathan come up with talking cat warriors? And the question more broadly for all of you is, what was the inspiration for your book that you read from? So we'll start with Jonathan because he has the talking cat soldiers and we do not, about which I am sad.
I often forget where things come from the minute I start them, but the dragons of the 5 different realms need assistance from something. In the realm of fire, they brought in a population of humans. In the realm of air, they decided to uplift cats and turn them into warriors. At one point in the book, there was also a population of uplifted mice who were more like doing the daily cooking and cleaning while the cat warriors fought, but it was getting a bit much. So I backed off to just cats. So I think it was because I needed something for the dragons of air. They just wanted, instead of having nice human pets like the dragons of fire, they wanted something that was a pure warrior, and a cat seemed like a better bet.
Well, your cat voice is like amazing. And where was the inspiration for your
Masquerade? I think I was watching. It had been something I was watching about the 1925. Something I read about the LGBTQ lifestyle during the Harlem Renaissance, and it got me to thinking about, you know, I haven't read any stories, you know, romantic stories about that time period, especially within African-American community. So I just figured I would create something, and What better way to create it than to bring, a gangster and a love triangle and kidnapping and throw it all into one book with some romance and call it a day.
All you need is a cat soldier, and you're
I don't know.
Stephanie, how about you?
So this is one of those books I was talking about earlier in a previous panel. Wentworth and Hector were secondary characters in William's story. And of course, because I tend to write secondary characters better, I left the male-female romance that I was writing, where Will is the primary character, to his brother's Viscount. And so my idea for Wentworth came when I was needing a secondary character in another book.
Those secondary characters can really fuel good ideas.
Yeah.
I love that. So Nicole, you actually do mixed martial arts, don't you?
I do, yeah. So this is a real easy question for me. And the inspiration for the book is a lifetime of martial arts. And part of learning martial arts, it becomes very natural that you just start seeing fights in your head all the time, because and part of it is your brain trying to learn these things. So it's just replaying it, and other parts, I don't know, I guess my mind just works like that. I always thought I'd be good at choreographing fights for movies or something, because I just see fights naturally in my mind. So that was kind of the beginning. And then, it just turned into a romance, and then it turned into, well, what could mess up a romance? Well, how about if they have to fight each other? That'd be pretty bad. And it just all came together really easily.
That would be bad. So Chris, you like to eat chocolate, as do I.
I was going to say most of us do. I came up with the idea because I'm doing the sensory series, and this just ended up I'm down to 2 senses. So scent was a much better word than smell. And I didn't want to make it about perfume and stuff like that, lotions and like the normal stuff that you normally think about when you think of romance and what's attractive and what what attracts you to somebody. And so I decided on scent as a chocolatier, because you smile. The minute you smell something sweet in your life, you smile, because it's tasty, it's either chocolate or it's sweet, it's sugar, it makes you happy. And I love the smell of chocolate. I love the smell of sweets, marshmallows. Oh my gosh, I'll go into a grocery store and I'll just smell a bag of marshmallows. It's totally weird, I know, but I love that smell. I just love sugar. I love the smell of sugar. And so that's how that book came about.
I have this vision of you in the grocery store.
You are exactly right. And it's so embarrassing to everybody else, but I love it. I love the smell. Marshmallows is such a good smell.
Maybe not so much during the pandemic smelling.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I usually take those marshmallows with me. It's not like I just go around and smell them on the shelves and put them back, but I usually just saying.
Well, I think that's a great vision to close out on. Thanks to everyone for attending tonight. We really appreciate you. Thanks to you fine authors for reading excellent stories to all of us. Tomorrow we start back up at 3 p.m. Eastern with some author readings. We have panels, we have chats, we have everything. We have a panel on book covers. So join us tomorrow. Thanks so much for participating. Y'all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.